You're watching Money Talks with me, Oscar Subakti. Coming up on the program, more than a decade of civil war has left Syria's economy in ruin. What will it take for the country to recover and rebuild? Why all that glitters is gold in Burkina Faso. And it's the end of the economic juggernaut that was Taylor Swift's Eras Tour. Syrians are continuing to celebrate the fall of the Assad regime and the end of more than a decade of civil war. But 13 years of conflict has reshaped the country's socio-economic landscape, leaving deep scars on its population and infrastructure. Millions of people are displaced both within and outside of Syria, and there are now calls for a unified global action to help Syria rebuild and recover. The war has reduced the country's GDP to less than 49% of what it was in 2010, the year before war broke out. The damage to infrastructure alone is estimated to be worth around $117 billion, while exports have plummeted by 92% since 2010. Around 7 million Syrians are internally displaced, with another 5.6 million refugees abroad. It's the largest displacement crisis since the Second World War. Turkiye, Lebanon and Jordan are hosting the most of the refugees. Well, nearly 13,000 Syrian children have died since the war began. 82% of recruited child soldiers have been involved in combat roles. 2 million children are out of school due to destroyed educational facilities, jeopardising their future prospects. And more than 70% of hospitals in Syria are non-functional or have been repurposed for military use. The healthcare crisis has left some 12 million people without access to essential services. Mortality rates are rising due to the lack of medical resources and supplies. Let's get more on this now with Osama Rizvi. He's an energy and economic analyst at Primary Vision. Really good to have you back with us, Osama. Syrians are still coming to terms with the fact that 13 years of civil war are over, that the Assad regime has fallen, and now the real work begins in terms of rebuilding a shattered Syrian economy and repairing the damaged infrastructure. Tell us, what needs to be done, in your view, to get Syria back on track economically?
Thank you so much for having me. The first and foremost step would be to rewrite and come up with a new social contract. And with this social contract, the prerequisite would be that all the factions, all the parties, internally and externally, they agree upon a smooth and a unanimous political transition. Lastly, the cost of rebuilding Syria has gone up anywhere between $250 billion to $1 trillion, some would say. And within that, the biggest issue remains the housing crisis, as 30% of the Syrian population is internally displaced. And as they start to come back, how are we going to do that? Secondly, the revenues have fallen, talking about oil and gas sector, from 393,000 barrels per day to now 40,000 barrels per day. The oil sector needs to be revived. And lastly, and very importantly, a multilateral program on an international level needs to be started as urgent and as early as possible so that the rebuilding efforts can start.
We know Western sanctions on the now former Assad regime are still in place, and that has crippled many aspects of the economy, including any oil exports that might have happened before the civil war. Do you see those sanctions being lifted anytime soon, and how important is it that those restrictions are removed?
Well, first of all, without lifting of the sanctions, there can be no meaningful growth, not only in economic terms, but also in terms of Syria's inclusion back into the international stage and the international rule-based order. Second of all, with Trump taking charge in the next administration, the issue of sanctions remain tricky. We also have the Syrian Democratic Forces that control most of the oil production and also 40% of the governorate that has most of the resources. So the US's interest would be keenly scrutinized. I believe if we are to really build in honesty the country of Syria, we wouldn't need to lift up the sanctions, because that also is a prerequisite.
We know some key figures from the interim administration are appealing to the millions of Syrians abroad to come back and help rebuild the country. Do you think that will have a positive effect on the economy, given, as you say, for example, housing is in tatters and public infrastructure is crumbling?
Well, I think they will need to show to these investors, whether foreigners or institutions or people, that the Syrian people are now ready to get back to lead their lives normally. We have already seen the current Salvation government sort of requesting the people to go back to the job. The petroleum facilities have started operating. The Nasib port is also, will open this Sunday soon enough, one of the most important ports. So I think we will have to show them that things have started to normalize, and then we can expect more aid and remittances.
Now, in an interview with the Reuters news agency, the interim administration has said that it wants to build a free and open market-based economy. These certainly are positive comments coming from those interim officials. Do you think foreign investors will look at those comments and, I guess, begin to at least consider reinvesting in the economy?
Well, reinvesting is a step that I would consider is far off the line. I mean, first of all, we need to come up with or restore what is called the territorial integrity of the country. And then all the international stakeholders need to come up with a unanimous political transition framework. And once these two things are done, because there is nothing going to be happening without a political stability. So then we can start looking or discussing such investment things.
Yes, certainly political stability is something that the international community will be waiting for. Osama Rizvi, thank you so much as always for joining us. The West African nation of Burkina Faso has unveiled its first locally produced gold bars. It's a major milestone for the country as it tries to take charge of its gold resources. The move will help boost economic stability, generate jobs and significantly enhance national revenues. Gold mining contributes some 16% to Burkina Faso's GDP. It accounts for a staggering 77% of the nation's total exports. The gold sector drives 22% of government revenues, playing a key role in fiscal policies. Now, gold prices are rising, driven by geopolitical tensions and demand for safe haven assets. For gold-reliant economies, these swings impact revenues and stability for countries like Burkina Faso. Bitcoin, dubbed digital gold, mirrors the value of the precious metal. Institutional interest in Bitcoin has shifted traditional gold investments. Savvy investors now hedge with both gold and Bitcoin amid the uncertainty. Let's get more on this now with Beverly Ochieng. She's a senior analyst at Control Risks. Great to have you back with us, Beverly. This really is a significant step for Burkina Faso. It has for years been producing its own gold. Much of that is being exported, but now it's producing its own gold bars. How significant is this step for the West African country?
I mean, it is significant because it aligns with the current military government's policies to better empower the country and make it gain directly from extractive resources. Burkina Faso is fully in the process of trying to establish a gold refinery, and that would produce gold to an international standard. We don't anticipate that it will be very robust, at least for another year or two. They do need additional technical expertise. But once this is established fully, Burkina Faso would be in a very strong position to benchmark its economy on gold reserves. And this is much further down the line because in the next 3 to 5 years, I think Burkina Faso does have the ambition of establishing its own currency as part of the alliance of the Sahel states. We know that the current government wants to raise up to 40% of stabilization and development plan from gold mining sector and from other extractive industries. And it's planning to do this in the next 3 years, which kind of matches the transition timeline. So in addition to political stability, Burkina Faso is looking towards its own resources for economic stability rather than external help.
Well, yes, because there has been a lot of political unrest in countries like Burkina Faso and other West African neighbours as well. You mentioned there some of the ambitious targets outlined by the officials in Burkina Faso. How realistic is that vision, do you think? And what will need to be in place in order for the government there to achieve those goals?
I mean, ultimately, it's about stability. Burkina Faso is having an insurgency across much of the country. Militants from Islamic State and Al-Qaeda are active in the country, and this has somewhat diminished some of its economic prospects. It's also led to some of the military responses, like the coups that we saw in 2022. Now, one of the sectors that has been robust despite that instability is the mining sector. between the years of 2000, 2010, and even much recently, we've had Western-owned companies coming in to invest in the sector. It's made mining hubs out of a lot of towns and far-flung areas. It's also improved the sector and the openness of Burkina Faso. But what is needed now is more support and counterinsurgency, and the military ruler has been quite adamant about getting more support for counterinsurgency as a way of ensuring that political and security stability is a way of economic stability for Burkina Faso.
We have seen gold prices climb quite staggeringly in recent years because of a number of issues, for example, as a hedge against inflation, but also because of conflicts in various parts of the world, including the war in Ukraine, in Palestine, and of course, what we're seeing now in Syria. Are you hopeful that gold will retain that value, and might Burkina Faso be able to seize those gains now before gold prices begin to moderate?
I mean, I think there's prospects that gold prices and for other minerals, including critical minerals, will remain high. And it's why you're seeing a big national resource drive that is taking place, not just in the Sahel, but across the continent. These resources allow governments to continue being in trade. They're the backbone of their economies. It's partly what's fueling a lot of the scrutiny and reaction drive in the Sahel around what the policies around resources have to do with development, access, as well as who gets a chance to be able to extract those resources. So even if you think about the more robust markets in the West, where Bitcoin is being hedged against gold, in Africa, in parts of Africa where extractives are a big industry, those mineral resources will remain the backbone of the economy. And the fact that there's such a race to be able to get them, I think China and the US are engaged in a sort of critical mineral race. The gold mining sector in Burkina Faso, in Mali, in Niger, which is quite nascent, is still a very lucrative area. And it's not about Western companies and other companies across the world are not about to let that go, because they've sunk in a lot and there's still a lot of potential to drive demand as well as supply and higher purchases.
Okay, Beverly Ochieng, we will have to leave it there, but it's great to get your analysis as always. Thank you. Germany and Serbia are stepping up to shape the future of lithium mining in Europe as the EV market struggles due to plummeting lithium prices. European nations are racing to secure raw materials to power its clean energy transition and reduce their dependence on China. Lara Kilic-Arslan reports.
German Chancellor Olaf Scholz recently met Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić to explore a partnership on sustainable lithium mining.
What is important for us is the exchange of experiences, German expertise, German knowledge, and cooperation of our mining and geological faculties with the academy here in Freiburg.
Securing raw materials like lithium is critical, not just for Germany, but for Europe as a whole.
The concept of sustainability does not only apply in Germany, it is also important in Serbia. There is a very similar lithium project being planned there, and the European Union would like to participate in the exploration of this major project in the Jadar Valley.
Serbia's Jadar Valley project, a $2.4 billion mining initiative, was reinstated this summer. If completed, it could supply 90% of Europe's lithium needs.
This switch to e-mobility is to succeed. There must be enough lithium for our industry.
But these talks come at a turbulent time for the global lithium industry. Analysts predict a 25% increase in supply this year, followed by another 15% in 2025, contributing to plummeting prices. Prices have dropped 90% since their December 2022 peak, forcing major producers like Mineral Resources and Pilbara Minerals to cut or halt production. Analysts say the total reduction in lithium output could reach 100,000 metric tons in 2024 and climb to 228,000 tons by 2025. China, however, is playing a different game. While some mines close, Chinese battery makers are supporting others, keeping supply chains intact and furthering their global influence. Meanwhile, companies like CATL are teaming up with European automakers like Stellantis to invest in massive battery plants, including a $4.3 billion project in Spain. For Europe, the race is on. The continent must secure lithium supplies to compete in the EV revolution, while balancing sustainability and cost. That's why talks between Germany and Serbia are vital. Lara Kılıçarslan, TRT World.
Volkswagen workers in Germany are fighting back against cost-cutting plans, which could lead to wage cuts and factory closures. A fourth round of talks has just begun, but strikes are now spreading. Nicholas Morgan has the details.
Volkswagen is facing what could be the biggest challenge in its 87-year history. Talks between the car maker and unions over plans for its first-ever factory closures have hit a deadlock. It sparked protests and strikes at 9 plants right across Europe, including its headquarters in Wolfsburg.
We are totally ready to go on strike. The mood is obviously subdued since they show absolutely no goodwill. We are all scared. Many of those who are nearing retirement are really scared that they could lose their jobs now.
VW not only wants to close plants, but also to cut wages by 10%, and insists its survival depends on these cost-cutting measures. It claims demand for cars in Europe has fallen by 2 million annually since 2018. The company also says it struggles to compete with cheaper Asian rivals. But unions accuse Volkswagen of putting profits above people.
We have to fight for our jobs and our future and for the people who will follow in our footsteps. 20 years ago, we saw the same drama. Already at the time, we accepted wage cuts, and now it's back to zero.
All 3 of the plants tagged for closure are in Germany. Protesters say they are ready to escalate with 24-hour strikes if a deal is not reached at the latest talks.
We are here because we are angry. We are here because Volkswagen has escalated the situation and has not yet been willing to seek a compromise.
Volkswagen must balance cutting costs while protecting its iconic reputation. Meanwhile, workers are determined to fight for their futures. Nicholas Morgan, TRT World.
In 2023, 1.5 million adults in the UK mainly used cash for daily spending, the highest number since 2019. This is a reversal of decline in cash use, which was driven by contactless cards. Tülay Kalyon Haznadarolu explains the trend.
Cash is definitely not king anymore, but is certainly back. That's according to the latest research by the British Retail Consortium.
We no longer see people using these. They're now using credit cards or their phones the simple way. And the answer is that cash is now back. It's firstly about budget. A lot of people are very worried about whether it's eating or heating. And so what they can do is much easier when you've got cash. You can make sure that you've got budget appropriately. The second way is actually about safety, because cash is basically anonymous. And a lot of people, for example, who are in abusive relationships, they've talked about this. It's where they can track people. They can track them on their credit card statements and so on and so forth. And so there's an anonymity about cash and working on that sort of basis. And the final reason is about technology. Now, not everybody is able to use these smartphones or so on and so forth.
While digital payments are on the rise, banknotes remain the second most popular payment method after debit cards. 72% of 18 to 24-year-olds regularly use their digital wallets to make contactless payments. But only 27% of 45 to 54-year-olds use mobile contactless payments regularly. And when we look at the spending habits of over 65s, just 8% use digital wallets.
What we need to do, I always say as a futurist, is that you need to flatten the learning curve. You need to get confidence in technology. And I always say that trust comes in on foot, but leaves on horseback. And the more that you hear about problems with tech going wrong, problems about computers going down and so on and so forth, people prefer to have cash in their hand. And that's why I think it's going to carry on for a little while.
But experts expect older age groups to catch up with digital payments in the coming years. In a world dominated by digital payments, cash is making a strong comeback. Although digital is here to stay, recent data shows 1 in 5 purchases are now made with banknotes. So while we all know what the future looks like, hard currency is holding on. Either for budgeting, privacy, or simply out of habit, many still find comfort in having money in their hands. Tülay Kalyon Haznadarolu, TRT World, London.
Now, we're constantly being told how artificial intelligence is transforming the future, from jobs to health to art and even online retail. Over 2 days, the World Deaf e-commerce fair in Dubai brought together industry leaders, entrepreneurs and innovators from around the world. Ömer Bakalolu was there and sent us this report.
From tracking your online shopping order to paying with just a tap, artificial intelligence is quietly shaping our daily lives. It helps organize the swift deliveries of groceries, the fraud alerts from your bank, and even the recommendations you see while browsing. But for businesses, AI is much more than convenience. It's a revolution. And last week, Dubai became a hub for discussions about this change. World Deaf, organized by Turkish industry leaders, showcased cutting-edge technologies and created a platform for collaboration among global e-commerce professionals.
10.000'e yakın ziyaretçimiz var.
Our expectation was 5,000 visitors, but this number reached 10,000. This shows that e-commerce has gained significant momentum in this region after the pandemic. Exhibitors from 25 countries and visitors from 82 countries participated.
The event put artificial intelligence front and center, highlighting its growing influence across various sectors. From logistics to finance, artificial intelligence is reshaping a wide range of industries globally. Here in Dubai, companies are seeking new strategies to stay ahead in this fast-changing digital era. In logistics, AI is becoming the backbone of e-commerce operations. It's helping companies predict demand more accurately, optimize delivery routes, and ensure faster, more reliable services.
Planning the sources and managing them between the differences of peak and off-peak times is very difficult. So AI will help us to manage to make estimations of demand better. By that way, we can plan our sources better, which means that there will be a big cost efficiency in source planning.
The financial sector is also turning to AI to address some of the biggest challenges. Payment companies are using it to detect fraud in real time and offer personalized solutions, enhancing customer experience and trust.
I think artificial intelligence is here to stay, and not only here to stay, but I think the adoption will get more and more into financial businesses as well. We at World First also use AI. One of the use cases we have adopted AI is on the customer service side. So we have a personal assistant if you go to World First platform.
Whether it's improving deliveries, securing payments, or reshaping how we shop, AI isn't just the future of business, it's the present. Ömer Bakalolu, TRT World, Dubai.
Well, it's officially the end of an era, or at least the Eras tour. Taylor Swift's worldwide jaunt became a global phenomenon, breaking records and hearts around the world. But beyond the music, it has brought in billions and reshaped the business of entertainment. Lara Kilic Arslan has the story.
Taylor Swift's Eras tour has redefined what it means to be a superstar. It's lasted more than 20 months, visited over 50 cities, and earned over $2 billion in ticket sales, making it the highest-grossing concert tour in history. Taylor Swift's performed 149 shows, dazzling millions of fans. And her concerts are more than just music. They've become cultural phenomena. In Seattle, the energy of Swift's fans was so powerful, it created seismic activity, equivalent to a magnitude 2.3 earthquake.
Oh, I love her. I grew up with her and listening to her songs, so we like to listen to her music. Yeah.
I love her, and thank you so much for empowering young women. I think she's great.
The business impact of the tour is enormous. Local economies thrived as fans traveled and booked hotels. Swiftonomics boosted cities globally, creating a huge economic effect. Swift's merchandising hit record numbers with $200 million in sales in last year. And globally, her concert film added more than $260 million.
My ticket cost $3,000 on StubHub. Yeah, mine also costs roughly the same. It was more expensive than the flight from Australia.
As the tour comes to an end, its legacy shines bright. Swift's billion-dollar milestone is more than just music, it's the game changer. Music producers call Swift's tour the gold standard for the industry. And as she sang, this is the golden age of something good and right and real. It feels like her era of success is only beginning. Lara Kulcharslan, TRT World.
And if you have any stories you'd like our reporters to look into or any questions for our experts, you can send us a post on X at TRT Money Talks. And that is all from Money Talks for now. From me and the whole team here in Istanbul, thanks for watching. Bye for now.